I'd like to ask Akshay ji, as you spoke deeply about stressed assets and how to acquire them, I would also want to know, and all of us would want to know, how can we fund those acquisitions? That is a point I think which everyone would be interested to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, today banks, which has been the most traditional source of finance for the steel industry, even their acquisition funding has become pretty common. As long as they see change in management, right? Because acquisition of a stressed company doesn't mean that the company, was not performing. It was probably because of some kind of over leverage, some kind of issues with the previous promoter, etc. So even the most traditional source, which is banking capital, is available for acquiring stressed assets. But that said, there are various other avenues of funding that have opened up in the last couple of years. To name a couple of them, NBFCs, right? NBFCs, obviously, there are some large NBFCs that are still very active, and we have a representation here as well. There are a lot of AIFs today that have come up and are very actively funding acquisitions, partnering with acquirers as well as borrowers. In fact, there are special situation funds, there are performing credit funds, and more these funds are looking at cash flows rather than assets. So naturally, any credit fund will look at security cover, and I think that's not going to go in India. Although hopefully, the preference to cash flow from asset will happen and is in the process of happening. But I think that's the other. A lot of these large international for large acquisitions, like I said, a lot of these large international funds. So not only domestic but also international funds have come up. So domestic, I would say funds like Edelweiss, Kotak. They are very active. Some of the new age funds have come up like Neo, Alpha, etc. that are funding such cases. Then you have some of the international guys are like I mentioned. Avenue Capital is funding. Bank of America. Then you have you have Bain that has funded in the past. So a lot of these Canadians, they are very active. They've partnered with some of the Indian companies and they are providing that financing support. So a lot of alternative modes of funding besides banks, but I would still say banks would be the #1 place to go given the cost of finance. I think no one will provide as competitive a cost. But I think the structuring flexibility that these funds give you, that banks will not. So, it depends on what you need, but a lot of avenues have opened up. And obviously capital markets, can't forget that.
Thank you, Akshay ji.